In the previous episodes, we have introduced you to Jill, Sarah, Wendy, Roxy, and Karen. In order to save future victims, these women bravely shared their very personal and private stories with all of you. In last week's episode, we broke down the hard cold truth regarding Sanjara Wellness and the individuals directly involved. Now in this episode, we are going to do a deep dive into Todd's childhood, his relationships with his immediate family, Todd becoming a husband, and then a father. I also look into the multiple companies, associations, and nonprofits that Todd states he was either a board member, volunteer, or sponsor for. And most importantly, I will break down the tactics that Todd uses to manipulate, con, and seduce these unsuspecting victims.
Welcome to Ex-Wives Undercover.
Liars, cheaters, and love cons.
I'm Amber.
And I'm Athena.
First we told our story, and now we're sharing all of your craziest and most heart-wrenching stories of love gone wrong. Sometimes we laugh.
And sometimes we cry.
But more importantly, we stand together.
All right, girl. You ready to do this?
Let's do it.
The views, information, or opinions expressed on our show by our guests are solely the views of those individuals involved, and by no means represent absolute facts. Opinions expressed by the host and guests may change at any time. Our podcast and YouTube show may at times cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to suicide, abuse, violence. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. The full story of Todd Deans' destruction and the list of multiple individuals he's harmed spans much further and cuts even deeper. The amount of financial devastation and reprehensible damage caused by this man sadly begins decades prior to Todd's scheming and conning in Kentucky and Tennessee. In fact, his criminal behavior was happening here in my home state of Washington for more than 25 years prior to Todd moving to Sun Valley, Idaho. So how does a man like Todd Dean begin a life path of pure evil and manipulation? Thankfully, I was put into contact with a woman named Donna, and she would help me understand more about this predator. Next is Donna explaining how her and Todd met.
This podcast had been done by a gentleman who lived in Sun Valley, who I knew through a mutual friend. Really good guy, really upstanding man. So he had interviewed Todd on this podcast, and I just made a comment on the podcast on Sanjara and what a need there was for it. And he responded to my message via Facebook. And about a day or two later, he sent me a friend request on Facebook. I get friend requests every day. I'm like, yeah, no, block. But the fact that he knew this man from Sun Valley and had interviewed, it kind of took my guard off a little bit. And so I thought about it for a little bit and I accepted it. And then we started interacting on Facebook.
When I see your little icon, the photo of you, I'm like, oh, his type, he's coming after her. As soon as he saw.
It's like, oh, she paid attention to me.
Oh, yeah.
One more flying monkey,
Yeah. For you to say something positive about Sanjara, I mean, boom, you just had to put a target on yourself without even realizing it.
Yeah, I think he looked at my life and thought, wow, she travels, she does this, she does that. She might have money,
Yep, that's right.
I hadn't dated in 4 years since after my divorce. And actually a funny thing was I kind of was, kind of crushed on the guy who interviewed him. And I thought, well, he's not bad looking. So
you're like, runner up, okay. And just like that, the grooming has begun. Little did Donna know, she was dealing with a serial con artist. Dr. Kate, a licensed psychologist and certified sex therapist, breaks down the 6 stages of adult grooming on her website, Modern Intimacy. Stage 1, targeting a victim. The groomer will typically narrow in on a target that they feel is vulnerable and perceived as easy to control. What's his whole icebreaker? Just thanks again for responding.
Hi, nice to connect.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, I remember showing my sister's picture and I'm like, he's CEO of the Sanjara. And I had looked up the Keiretsu, I believe is the Seattle company he had worked for and seen videos. And, I kind of looked him up a little bit before I accepted the friend request. And I thought he seems pretty legit. My sister's like, oh yeah, he looks interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, he was interesting. All right.
Once you guys start communicating and talking and you're getting to know him, describe Todd for us.
Um, Very flirtatious. Started off with the humor because he has a pretty good sense of humor.
Okay.
So there was a lot of like humorous banter, kind of, teasing each other. And then him saying, is that you in that, picture? You're quite beautiful. Who doesn't want to hear that? And
Sure.
I thank you,
Yeah.
And then it just kind of progressed from there to FaceTiming.
Okay.
And he used to call me on the road, or he would turn on his camera while he was driving and show me the sights. And we would talk for 2-3 hours sometimes,
Wow.
where it was like, I got to get off the phone.
Yeah.
Um,
Stage 2, gaining the victim's trust. This is a crucial step for the groomer. And during this stage, they will use flattery, attention, elaborate gift giving, and anything else that they can do to make their victim feel cared for, appreciated, and loved by the groomer. And in Todd's case, he sent these women dozens of selfies, naked images, and pornographic videos.
And for the record, I love your eyes, and I also love your breasts, both. And I know there's a lot more to you. You look really good. I'll tell you what, you're sexy.
This is also the stage where the groomer will begin to test the limits of what they can get away with. They will often begin demonstrating small attempts at control over the victim, but they usually are actions that can be explained away or even missed.
So I think I'm going to take a nap. You don't have to do anything on the property, but I was thinking that if you did, that weed eater would be great, and getting that big driveway done.
And although I already knew the answer, I asked Donna if the same types of things happened to her. Before he flies down to San Diego for the first time, are you also getting the love bombing with the text? And are you getting pictures, the
I did. I got
inappropriate videos?
Yes, I got it all.
Okay.
I got it all.
I'll pray for you.
Yeah, please,
Oh.
please do. Well, and
He goes straight to the point, sends the dick pic. That way, that person that's like, disgusting, you're so disrespectful, he then says, you're going to be a strong woman who I won't be able to get over on easily.
I think it depends on the woman. For me, those didn't come till a little bit later. But what he did do, this is the grooming, is there's the memes of like people making out, and he would send those, but here I'm a woman at this point. I've told him I haven't had sex in years on purpose because I've just been healing myself after my divorce and not wanting to date, just focusing on my life, and he was like, oh, I wish I could do that, but I think that because of me, he started out slow, and then it turned into the half naked selfies that we've all seen.
Yes.
And then it turned into a dick pic, and I'm like, whoa, and then it turned into videos.
Yes.
And, unfortunately, like a lot of the other women I've talked to, we've all engaged with them that way because you think you're having a relationship. And I'm like, is this
fabulous if he's just your one person? Great.
I'm like, dating, right? I'm like, I'm nervous, but it's almost a little tittillating too, right?
Yeah, totally.
And now I'm like, the only guy that has these sex things of me is Todd Deans. But, I remember one time he said something, well, you should be careful. Like, people can sell stuff like that. I'm like, whatever. I'm a human. I'm a woman. I am sexual. You
better start searching the internet to make sure he hasn't tried to make money off you.
He probably is. He's probably making money off anybody who's ever sexted with him.
Oh, God.
Dean will make money off any way he can.
Yeah. Stage 3, fulfill a need for the victim. Now, this is where the groomer will often dominate their victim by providing a need the victim has. And this can be as simple as an emotional need, maybe financial needs, survival needs, employment, or any other opportunity for dependence. In this case, Todd had control over these women because he owed them thousands and thousands of dollars.
I've been on the phone all day long. I might have someone that's going to come up with the money. Well, I think we might have a lot of money, but I'm not sure yet. So I just I've been on phone calls and actually had a meeting today, but I'm just headed to the airport now.
Stage 4, isolating the victim. This is a major factor in grooming because the groomer can't have a victim's loved ones trying to show the victim the reality of the abusive relationship dynamic, which we have seen a lot with the relationship between Kit and Todd. Next is stage 5, abusing the victim. And this is where the overt abuse tends to begin. And this can be physical, emotional, sexual, financial, spiritual, or all of the above. But by this point, the victim is likely deeply committed and emotionally or financially embedded in this relationship.
And then there was, a physical relationship, sexual relationship at one point.
That was gone way early.
Okay. How long was that time frame when he ended the sexual part?
It was very quickly. We talked for maybe 6 or 7 months and FaceTimed. And then he very suddenly he's like, I'm coming to San Diego.
Okay.
And so he came to San Diego and we spent the weekend, and it was wonderful and weird at the same time.
Okay.
He almost kind of started to use the sex addiction. I don't want us just to have that type of intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Intimacy is not sex. Intimacy is other stuff like this, and this. And there was part of me that was like, I kind of like that,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when that didn't work, he would talk about, our friendship. He's like, I don't want to lose you as a friend. He said, you're one of the few true friends I have,
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'm going to have to think about that, because at this point I'm still thinking, this CEO, because I still had that thought in my head of, that he's productive and he's going to be successful. And I honestly didn't know about entrepreneurship. So when he later started saying, I'm waiting for this check to come in, can you send me $50? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you don't have any money? He's like, well, I had to pay the rent, and I had no idea how entrepreneurship works. So I just thought, and he would pay me back, but then that started to change, 50 here, 75 there. I think it was a total of maybe $600 over months, right?
Okay.
And I remember one day saying to him, hey, Todd, I'm not your fucking ATM.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I said, I'm a single mom. I don't have that kind of money to give you. I said, if you choose entrepreneurship, then that's what you choose. Otherwise, go out and get a job like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Stage 6, maintain control. By stage 6, the abuse is persisting due to the groomer successfully manipulating a victim through all of the previous stages. And now that they feel they have ultimate control, it's their goal to maintain that control as long as possible.
So what kind of things are you digesting? I heard Kit got a bunch of videos and shit as well. I'm assuming you got the same thing, and I'd love to know what it is that you got. So what the fuck are they saying, Jill? If you were going to get an STD, you would have had it by now. I'm just telling you. Anyway, so I'm sure you're clean as a whistle, but you got to tell me what the fuck they're telling you. I need to know that.
So how did the first visit go down between Donna and Todd when he flew down to San Diego to meet her in person for the first time?
His visit with you was wonderful and a little weird. So we got the 2 W's going. Give me an example. Like, how was it wonderful?
Just to finally to meet him, and and we laughed, and we had physical contact, and just kind of going around San Diego and just having fun. We met and had dinner with a couple of his friends.
Okay. Now, what was weird?
The weird was the sexual stuff. Not the sex itself, but it was like he, let me massage you, and he wanted to go buy all this lotion, which I understand this is something he does with a lot of women. Let me give you a massage. But it wasn't like it wasn't normal. Something in my gut, which, we talk about our intuition, and you can look back, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
he was almost very distant. And normally, if you're starting a relationship with someone, that's not the time that you're distant.
True.
It felt like a push and pull, I guess is the best way to say it.
Donna's gut feeling and intuition regarding Todd was spot on. What happened to Todd that would make him do the things he has done to all of these individuals? Being a sexual predator, grooming, scheming, the cons. So after some research online, a handful of emails, texts, and interviews, I was able to get a basic picture of Todd's childhood. Let's now rewind time and start at the very beginning of Todd Dean's story. Michael Todd Dean was born on July 31st to his parents Melanie and Robert Dean. And from what I've gathered, Todd's father, Robert Dean, was a distinguished longtime military veteran. And in 1977, Robert, his wife, and 2 children, Sherry and Todd, moved from Utah to Billings, Montana. I was also told that Todd was boastful about being a stellar athlete in his youth. And although he did not partake in team sports, it seemed he found himself involved in more independent sports and activities. Todd later went on to graduate from West Billings High School, and then in an article that he put online, he states that he later attended the business school of Eastern Montana College. I, however, have been told by multiple sources that indeed was not true and that Todd never did attend college. Several women have sadly confirmed that Todd did share stories with all of them regarding multiple occasions of sexual, physical, and verbal abuse. And the earliest stories seem to take place around the late elementary and middle school years.
His parents, it was a tumultuous relationship.
Okay.
And this is just, allegedly, because what he said, but they said his father was very abusive. A lot of trauma, I think, from the war. Very abusive towards his mother at one point, kicking them all out. So his mom and sister and him were living in a car. Talked about sexual abuse when he was living with his mother and sister near some teenage boy that, had, sexually abused Todd's sister. And there was something with the sisters and these 2 boys sexually abusing them. He did admit he was a victim.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
A handful of years later, Todd does make his way into the insurance industry and begins a career there. Soon after, it appears that Todd does move to Washington State. He does get married, he has a son, then he gets divorced, and then Todd begins an entirely new career as a single man ruining the lives of unsuspecting women. While doing research, I came across an article online that spoke about Todd's ex-wife and their son, Scott Dean, who was 12 at the time. In this article, it talks about Todd's ex-wife receiving $36,000 through the passport program that Washington State has. And this allowed her to replenish the savings that she had tapped into for living expenses during the time that she did not receive child support from Todd Dean.
And he was married to his son's mother. Is that correct? They were married?
Very, a lot younger, and they divorced pretty quickly.
They did, okay. And that was in Washington, here by me, Seattle?
Yes, Seattle area, yeah.
Okay.
From what his ex-wife told me, there was a lot of cheating, and he did drink back then.
Okay.
He's been sober probably for about 17 years now. I think it was 13 when I met him. He had lived with a woman in Seattle for quite a few years.
Okay.
She's an author. I'm not sure if you know about her.
Probably not.
She's written a book. She's a very successful real estate agent.
And that's here in Washington?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
She had restraining orders and stuff against him. Really sweet lady. And she tried to help me a couple of times by telling me exactly who he was. He lived with her after her divorce. And, in her eyes, he was her guy, and Todd is not lazy. I mean, he's a typical narcissist. He's high achieving, but he has a ton of shame. And so he would, take care of her house and, do construction and clean and do all that stuff. But
Yeah.
she had, I think she had 3 boys or 4 boys.
Okay.
And so they kind of raised the kids together. But I think,
Interesting.
I think she finally caught on. And when Todd would say to me, she was the love of his life. And
Really?
oh yeah. And he showed me pictures and isn't she beautiful? And, I can never love like that again. But it sounds like they had a pretty posh lifestyle her,
Yeah.
because of her success. And I think that's when he was working at Karitsu, something like that.
Okay.
In each episode of Jill's story, it's apparent that Todd Dean has ruined every single relationship with every individual he has come into contact with. So what about his family members? And what is the relationship between Todd and his son, Scott?
Can you share with me or tell me anything about his relationship with his son?
What I know, what I have witnessed is that it's kind of like buddies, I know that Todd loves his son. I witnessed it, then in that video, that's kind of how they are. But I think Scott knows who his dad is.
Okay.
From his mom, because I've also spoken to her.
Yeah.
I
They're
think
smart.
that,
They see through things as they get older.
yeah, and I think that he accepts the good parts of his dad, like the going camping, because like I went camping with him for 5 days at Redfish Lake.
Okay.
Scott has done that with his rugby buddies. He's fun. He's, hey, let's go hike. The hike nearly killed me. It was like 6 hours. I experience things that I love to do, but don't really have people to do that with. So
Yeah.
I think Scott does those kinds of things with his dad.
Okay.
He's a really good young man. I've
Yeah.
had the same girlfriend, I think, for 7 or 8 years now. They both play rugby. His son's rugby team was playing. And I saw him, that video, I think I sent it to you, where he's hugging Scott. That game was like an amazing game, and they won the championship. And Todd burst into tears standing next to me, like tears flowing down his face. And he looked at me. He almost looked shocked at himself.
Wow.
And then embarrassed. And, so I saw like human sides of Todd.
Okay.
I don't know if other women, I think Christy certainly did.
Yeah.
So and I didn't really know about narcissists. I just assumed people are good people. They're coming in with good, especially, in your 50s. I'm like, you think you're not going to have to deal with this kind of stuff with a grown ass man.
True.
But he does not behave like one.
No. I really am starting to see a pattern with him. And as much as I want to think that those tears at his son's game were real, it makes me wonder if the moments he's showing emotion or the moments that make him happy, like this relationship, are all events that make him look good.
Exactly. I actually finally figured that out. I was like, it wasn't about Scott's team winning. It was like, my son's team are the MVPs, right?
Yes. It makes him look good or feel good, or that's a good memory for him, because in his mind, as a narcissist too, right?
Yeah. And I asked him one time, and I said, how did Scott turn out so great? Like, he's such a neat young man. And he goes, probably because his dad's such a fuck up, and he walked away. And so I truly believe that down deep inside, typical narcissist, right? It's a kind of a survival.
Yeah.
Not an excuse, but an understanding, because the one thing I've learned is sometimes just understanding what drives people helps you move forward.
Absolutely. 100%. Because it is very confusing, especially dealing with a person like Todd.
Yeah.
It really does mess with your head, and you try to make sense of things, but in the end you realize that 1 + 1 will never equal 2, ever. Ever.
And that's where I had to get to, because even when my fiance and I split up, he called me and said, hey, he had texted me and said, I can talk. And I said, okay. And he he called me and said, I'm so sorry. Like, if anybody deserved happiness, it was you. I'm so bummed for you, you know? So I felt like I had this relationship with this person. And then I realized, like, all fake.
Yeah, exactly. Was it even real? I mean, I am still, things will come up in other women's stories to
Yeah.
where it clicks for me finally. And I mean, I'm so far removed now from my ex. Well, kind of, we share a child, so that's challenging. But
Yeah.
some of the very few things I thought were real, I realized I know for sure weren't. And now they all make sense, especially when other people have come forward. It's like, oh, that's what that meant, or that's where you were. Yeah, okay.
I did reach out to both Todd's ex-wife and Scott. And during a text message exchange, Todd's ex-wife did confirm that Scott is aware of the man that his father is. She also clarified that the back child support that was owed was never paid in full by Todd. She states that Todd always said as long as she could support Scott, that Todd would never pay a dime. And he never did, because someone else paid. And that person would be Scott's grandfather, Todd's dad. And after he died approximately 4 years ago, he left money in his will to pay Todd's debt for his grandson. Next, I asked Donna to fill us in regarding the relationship between Todd and his father.
His relationship with his dad was very distant because his dad knew what he was doing with women. And his dad actually chased him off his property with a gun and left him $1 in the will. $1.
When you say chased him off the property, was this in the teenage years or like the 20s, 30s, currently?
A year before he died.
And that was in 2018, 2019?
Must have, yeah.
Okay.
And he had told me that story. He had gone there with a friend of his, Heather, and he went like, you know, hey, Dad. And his dad was like, what are you doing? Get off my property, and ran and got a gun. And Todd told the story and was laughing. But his sister Sherry knew that because the dad knew what he was doing for a living, which is conning women out of money. Well, he's stolen from his son. That's why his dad was so pissed too.
Really?
Dad sent him money for like graduation, and Todd stole it.
That's fucked up.
So if you steal from your own son, you know?
Do you think his son knows?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. And I've never really spoken to Scott about it. I don't know him that well. I met him a few times, you know, in the rugby arenas. But he, you know, Scott never, he's pleasant, like, hi, how are you? But it's like he knows, here's the next one.
How do you think Todd's father knew that he was a con man?
I don't think he's that good at hiding it from the people that really are around him. I think his mom knows. I think his sister knows. I've met them and sat and had dinner with them and watched the way that he spoke to them. He's very dismissive to his sister Sherry, who's she's just like this bubbly, you know, she's as charming as Todd is. His mom, the same way, but they were nervous around him.
Mm.
And so it, you know, it's always made me, I'm like, were they part of it? Is this what he learned growing up? Did they have to do this for him to survive, you know, for them to survive? A, you know, cute little boy with the big dimples and the big blue eyes. You know, is this something he was taught, you know?
I wonder if the women in Sun Valley, Idaho, this had probably all transpired around that point. I wonder if they had reached out to his family, trying to find him, or commentary, or, you know, just.
Yeah, I think the woman, the 3-month well-known woman, I think she had conversations with his mom.
Okay.
Because I did at one point, and because Todd had kind of told on me with his mom.
Of course.
I'm like, well, you told your mom, like, come on, you know? Yeah. And she was texting with me, and I ended up calling her. And her last words to me, because I was like, you know, do you know what he does? And I didn't know the extent of it, you know?
Right.
It was more that, like, he was a player, and, you know, do you have $25? You know, I mean, you know, I let him borrow a little money, but, you know, I kind of conned him out of it in the long run.
So smart. I love it.
But as Bob said, you're a really nice woman. You deserve a really nice man. And
And run for your
yeah,
life.
yeah. And then when I got off the phone with her, I thought that was profound.
Yeah.
I think she knows who he is, but what do you do when it's your son?
I asked Donna if she's aware of when Todd began all of his scamming, scheming, and cons.
He was conning people, but before he met
Penny.
and learned about her dream and stole it, what do you think the con was? Just fake investments in a product, or do you know anything like about that? Or
I think it was more so of selling himself kind of thing. Hey, if you could do this, or I need $1,000 for this because then I'm going to do this. I think that once a con, always a con.
so was he conning people back when he was with Christy?
Oh, he's been conning people for years. If you look back on his Facebook, it's same business, different VAT channel, just the players change. He also had asked me when he came into my house, "Oh, do you own this?" And I said, "No, I rent." And I thought it was an odd question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Todd was well aware of his actions and how they influenced these women. So the kind gestures and thoughtful acts of kindness he bestowed upon all of these women were all calculated attempts to gain their trust and to completely throw them off guard to what his real plan of action was. And although there was scheming and scamming always being done by Todd, there were also some hints of good moments that these women shared with him. But were any of them real?
Well, one of my sweet messages. I just wish I was with you or you're with me. That's what I wish. You're special to me too. That's a fact. Sorry, I've been on the phone all day. I've been thinking about you now. That's your birthday, and so happy 50th birthday. So we will definitely celebrate.
I asked Donna if she could recall any of the more heartfelt moments that she could remember.
Then he'd come to town, like if his son had a rugby game in San Diego, he'd come stay with me and we'd go watch the rugby, and that's when we met with his family and stuff. And in that time, he's taking me to Costco and he's filling up my house with. I'm like, "What are you doing? Like, I can buy." He's like, "No, just let me take care of you for a minute." So this is how he keeps you off guard, right? Is that he pretends to care. Like, even my friend would say, "He's so nice to you." So the first time, going up and skiing, he's an amazing skier, and he got us a couple of 2-day passes, and criticized my skiing and told me I wasn't coachable. And I'm like, just because I can't do it right away doesn't mean I'm coachable. And he would videotape me coming down the slopes, and then he'd say, "Okay, come here, watch this. Okay, see what you're doing here. This is what you're doing here." To the point to where I couldn't get up after the second day. I was working so hard, but I learned to ski better.
I don't think you had a choice.
Yeah, we'd go out to nice dinners, which I now realize were on other women. One of the things that he did, and this was confusing. This was the Sun Valley trip after I had met him in San Diego, and he took me to the Sun Valley Lodge, and we were looking through, the shop, and I hear my name, and I turn around, and the lady goes, "Your appointment is ready." And I looked at him, and he goes, "Go enjoy." And I said, "What did you do?" And he said, "I got you a massage. Go enjoy yourself." And I said, "Well, did you get yourself one?" And he said, "No, I'm just going to go out to the hot tub, but let me take care of you like you take care of people every day of your life."
Yeah.
And I went, "Oh," like I had never had someone do something like that for me.
Yeah.
So I remember
that is a mind fuck. That is a mind fuck. I get it. I totally have been in that situation, and they do these things, but then they drop these hints of really nice, heartfelt gestures.
Yeah.
And it really messes with your head.
Oh, completely. And I said to him on the way to the airport that day, and I said, "Why would you do?" Because he had made it clear we weren't going to be a couple. We weren't, that we were going to be friends, right? So I'm friend zoned, right? And I'm like, okay, like what? Like, you don't want me, you don't want me, right? If you don't feel it, you don't feel it. There's only one time that I would say that he felt not nice to me, and, and basically left him sitting in the restaurant. And he came out and said, whoa. And I said, you don't get to talk to me like that. You don't get to diminish me. You don't get to criticize me, because I don't really care what you think.
I like it. You're spicy and confident.
Yeah, he didn't like that, but
oh no.
Whatever.
There was also a completely different side to Todd. He often displayed lacking both empathy and sympathy. In this next clip, you will hear a prime example of this. After Donna has shared a rough patch that she is currently going through, this was Todd's response.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. I've just been working and going to concerts and sitting at the pool and playing poker and spending time with friends and going out to dinner. So that's all I got. Oh, I get a movie once in a while, but not very often, just saying. So I'm doing good.
Another incident took place in Sun Valley, Idaho, during a trip that Donna took to visit Todd. Donna witnessed Todd's disregard for those individuals in the service industry. The way he treated them with zero respect was stunning.
We were in Sun Valley, and we had gone up to the top of the mountain, and there's a restaurant up there, and he's like, I really want you to see this view. And so we go in, and they seat us over to the side. So there's this area overlooking all the mountains, and then there's the side room where you don't see that. And this cute little waitress came up, and she's like, hi, I'm going to be your waitress. And he said, hey, do you think we can get a room up front? Because I really want her to see the view. And she got really nervous, and she goes, well, I can check, but I won't be your server. And he goes, well, it's not all about you. She must have been 20, right? And same age as my daughter at the time.
Yeah.
And then she's like, she takes off, and I look at him and I go, that was rude.
Yeah.
He goes, well, he goes, I want you to sit up front and see the view. And I go, I'd rather sit here and be nice to this little waitress.
Yeah.
And sit up there and see the view.
Yeah.
Well, she comes back and she says, I have a table for you. And she walks us up there, and he just was kind of abrupt and arrogant,
Totally.
There's part of Todd's arrogance that's attractive, and there's part of it that's not, And so we get up there and we sit down, and she says, hands us the menus. And I pulled $20 out of my purse and I handed it to her. And I said, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he goes, wow. And I go, that's somebody's daughter. My daughter does this for a living. I did it for a living.
I did too.
So
I did too. Really, that was money out of her pocket. That her table.
I go, she got the shitty section today.
Yeah.
I go, you were unkind. And he said, yeah, okay, you're right.
In his mind, he was thinking, I want that $20.
So it's so sad to realize that he's watching me hand money away. It's like, but Sanjara.
I know it. Oh my gosh. Oh.
Now, before we move on, let's break down whether Todd Dean actually was a volunteer or board member for the multiple charities and nonprofits that I've seen him post over multiple sites. There was America Scores in Seattle. I did email them and have not received an answer back. Todd also states that he was on the board for the Montana Ambassadors. And after doing a lot of digging and a lot of research, I was not able to confirm that that was true either. Next up, Todd states that he was on the board for the University of Washington. I did look into both locations as well. The campus located in Seattle, Washington, as well as the campus located in Bothell. Both showed no sign of Todd anywhere on the website listed as a previous faculty member or board member. And what about Girls Giving Back? Todd says he was a sponsor. Well, again, Todd is not listed anywhere on the site as a sponsor.
My interpretation of things that Todd said is he wasn't allowed back in Seattle. So I think he got into as much trouble there as he did in Sun Valley, and then he fled.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
He would go back once in a while, but it was very quick visits.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's just, he's just a nomad.
And just when we thought we had uncovered the bulk of Todd Deans' fraudulent activities, even more startling information pops up. Not only was Todd swindling unsuspecting individuals, but so were his partners in crime, Randy, Gary, William, and a handful of others. Oh, and I should probably mention that all of these other men are actually all Todd. And to top it all off, Todd even acquired a fake ID for one of his aliases, Randy Kurt Phillips, who supposedly resides in Laredo, Texas. And while appearing even more legit with his fraudulent form of identification, Todd was able to defraud a woman in Florida out of $70,000. The kicker? If you look closely at the ID, you'll see that the expiration date says February 30th. Really, Todd? For such an educated businessman, you really didn't know that February only has 29 days? Moving on. And again, if you would like to view these fake identities to double check that you actually are not dating Todd Dean, you can see all of this on our YouTube show. You can also find all of this information on our Ex-Wives Undercover Facebook page. And as always, please feel free to reach out to us if you have found that you are too a victim of Todd Dean. We will put you in touch with the right people. Sadly, each day, we uncover more and more startling information about Todd Dean. So when Donna shares this next story with me, I sadly was not surprised.
I was talking to him when his father committed suicide.
Okay.
And so I got that text and I called him and I remember thinking, he's awfully calm. He's like, I'm fine. My dad and I have been good for years. And I'm thinking, wow, like
Yeah, almost a bit of an emotional detachment.
Even larger than an emotional detachment. I assumed he was in shock.
Okay.
But now, and after years of knowing him, he's very removed emotionally. No empathy.
Right.
I've seen him be very warm, but I've also seen him be extremely cold.
Yep.
Kind of always off guard.
Yeah. Or on guard.
Yeah.
On guard against him.
I could have been a little more on guard.
I see this in others with what he's displaying with like a personality disorder.
Yeah.
And that detachment you see with the lack of empathy and sympathy is spot on. And it's just so absolutely confusing because they're very convincing when they speak to you. But when you see the repetitiveness, all those videos, all those texts, it is a learned behavior. So what we've seen, or what you've seen, the dark side, I think that is the real him, and everything else really is the facade that he's learned and morphed into. And I've called him a chameleon before because he really is what he has to be for each person or each situation to get what he wants, it seems.
Oh yeah, he definitely is masking in the real world because I have seen those sides of him. We've talked about it. He said, "You're such an empathetic person. I don't get that. What does that feel like?" Which probably, that's red flag number one.
True.
I was like, what do you mean you don't feel empathy?
I know.
And those are the types of women that he goes for. I'm kind of glad I'm still alive because there were times I said things to him where, it was like in a situation where it could have turned out very differently. Now hearing, I'm in the woods with them for 5 days, But the thing is I think if he can overpower you and he can discredit you, then you're at risk for being physically, verbally, whatever, attacked. I think if he can't discredit you, then he watches his P's and Q's.
Yes. Very good point. You're right. You're spot on. Did you have any dark moments where you were ever afraid of him during an argument? Anything like that?
Like looking back now, I can look at situations and remember his face, remember his eyes. His eyes go very blank.
Yeah.
And not really knowing the psyche of this man. Now I'm like, ooh,
That was really going on in his head.
Ted Bundy was charming, right? And
Very true.
he actually, the one time he said something that I now look back on and go, wow. We were in Sun Valley. He was driving us out to the hot springs, which I'm sure he did for many women because he had a pair of Ugg boots and a robe for me, and probably many other women.
You got to give back afterwards.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you did. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. He literally almost killed us that night. That's a whole nother story. But we're driving out there, and he has a book called Question.
Oh.
And several of the other women, they've probably played this game with him too, where it's a book. You read a question, and then I answer, and then he answers.
Okay.
And so we just pick a question, and it was fun. It's like, getting to know him, and we're driving out there, and we're laughing, and then he goes, oh, out of the blue, he goes, have you even looked up? And I said, no, I'm reading the questions. And he said, look how far we are out here. It's no wonder women disappear.
Oh, damn.
Right. And I go, there was that moment, because I don't know him that well, but I feel like I know him a little bit. Right. And there's that moment of that was weird. And then I said, well, that would be really stupid of you if you're planning to murder me out here, because I pinged my friend on my location. She knows I'm with you. She has your address, and she has copies of our text messages. So if you're going to murder me, kind of a bad plan.
That was smart to say all that.
And I just started laughing. Well,
even if you hadn't, it was good that you said it. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was partially true.
Good.
But, we went out to those hot springs and we had fun. But what was funny was we go out in the hot springs, and then, we're getting in the car to leave, and he can't find the keys. And he's looking through the back seat, and it's the only time I've seen him frazzled. And I don't know him well enough yet to know that he doesn't usually get frazzled. And I said, what's wrong? And he's like, I can't find the keys, and I start laughing, and he's like, it's not funny. And he's losing his mind. Now it's like minus 32 degrees or something, like freezing, right? Our hair literally was frozen in the shade.
Oh, God. Yes.
And he's losing his mind. And I said, okay, just take a breath for a minute. And he goes, you don't understand. Like, we could die. We're out of cell service. We could die out here.
Oh, he was panicking.
And I look at him, and I start moving things around. Well, the keys had fallen out of his jean pockets and like in between the seat cushions. And I said, they're right there. And he's like, oh my God. And he gets back in, and he looks at me, and then he's embarrassed that he's so fast. And he goes, I don't think you realize, coming from San Diego, like, we wouldn't survive very long. And I looked at him, and I go, I would. I just get back in the water.
Yeah, I'm just getting back in the hot springs.
And he looks at me, and he just starts laughing. He goes, well, I guess that's a good idea.
Yeah, you're like, let's go defrost our hair.
Now, I probably didn't realize what dire straits we were in if we didn't get those keys. But, that was probably ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah.
During the time that Donna had spent with Todd, I asked her to share any additional stories or information that really felt off or that stood out to her.
I'm curious, was he carrying around a bottle of Viagra? I mean, that's a lot of women. Do you think there was an impotency issue? I mean, if there was an abusive situation in his past, did you notice anything with him sexually not being able to perform at times?
We only had sex on a few occasions, and it was the most distant, cold, disconnected sex I've ever had, which was highly disappointing because physically, like, he's 6'4", he keeps himself in great shape. I was very excited about it.
Yeah. What a letdown.
That's it. No, really, it was the worst letdown. Which I even ended up telling him later on. And I said, you have intimacy issues. And he's like, you think? And I said, yeah. I don't think there was any physicality issues. What I think it is for Todd, if he can overpower you, he's turned on.
Yeah.
Me, I'm like ripping off my own clothes. Like, there was no power for him in it.
No. You're like, let's get this party started.
I wanted to get the party started. My daughter was going to be home in an hour. Like, I want to get the party started, and I want to get out of here, and I think for someone like Todd, that, the several times we had sex, like I was open to it. And then I heard from the gal in Sun Valley, and she's like, oh no, he was very aggressive with her, and she was not sure she wanted to have sex. That massage thing is a weird fetish thing with him, I think. Like
So too.
we went to the, the CVS, and he had to pick out the perfect lotion. And, that's what I mean by like the weird, where it's like, this doesn't feel normal, but I don't know, maybe, I got a great massage, but I was open to sex. So
Yeah.
I
So
think
it's
it
too
has the
easy.
same meaning for him.
Right.
And then when I heard about the Hispanic girl too, and where he didn't pay her, threatened to report her, I'm like, that's what it's about. He one time said to me, "Because sex isn't it's rape isn't about sex, it's about power." Because there's a woman in Sun Valley, Tina Dean, who accused him of rape. Now I know a sheriff that Todd ironically dated, he read the report and said it likely did not happen that way. There wasn't enough evidence or anything. He was never charged with that. But she also, AA person, he met her at AA, he took her out into the woods. I believe he probably did overpower her because
absolutely.
she easily discredited.
Yeah.
I could not be easily discredited.
Right.
And I would not cower to him in any circumstances. He actually, like when we went camping, he's like, I knew you'd be good at this, but man, like I was showing him how to do shit. And he was
I love it.
like, wait a minute. And I'm like, why are you doing it like that? Move over,
Right.
I think he is threatened by women with any like ability to hold their own.
Absolutely.
And the women that he feels he can overpower, he will.
Yeah.
Because I was in the woods with him for 5 days. The most I got was a back rub, and I told him to stop.
Yeah.
He's like, wait, you don't want me to get you right? I said, listen, if we're not going to have a physical relationship, that's fine, but don't touch me then.
Yeah.
And we slept in the same tent. And he never. So, but that doesn't mean I don't believe. I believe 100% because I have seen how his mind works.
Yeah.
He loves getting over on things. He was in the movie theater one time, and they had the wrong seats, and I was with him, and he had snuck in. I had paid for my ticket, but he had snuck in, and he came back, and he had gained 2 movie passes to a different movie and a gift certificate for $50.
So would he claim that he booked his ticket and it didn't go through?
He was so happy with himself. I'm like, what are you, 12?
Oh, he's such a scammer.
Yeah. So I think he gets off.
Oh, for sure.
By getting over on people. And
absolutely.
I think that every time, whether it's sending a dick pic and getting a shock or getting something back or overpowering a woman who doesn't want to have sex with them, I think that's where he gets his I'm something. I'm somebody.
Yeah.
No matter what, there was one thing Todd was never short on, and that was mind fuckery. Todd had actually mastered this.
Give you a reason why he wanted to only be friends with you?
I think he knows what you do want is that you want a relationship. And his words to me were, I'm not in the position to have a long-term monogamous relationship because I'm not good at it.
Okay.
And so I took that early on, and I was catching on women sending him selfies and stuff. So I said, listen, if you want to hang out, that's fine, but I'm a one-man woman, and so I don't play this game.
Right.
And he was like, okay, like I know lots of women, I'm not good at this. When they say Todd Dean, I have to laugh at that. I'm like, you can kiss him as much as you want. He's still going to be a toad, I didn't realize what breadcrumbing and love bombing was. So, I'm taking all that stuff and this is truth, right? And I remember he had come to town. This was maybe 2 years after I'd met him. And he said, hey, I thought you maybe want to have coffee or go to lunch or something. And then maybe you and Eric and I can have dinner. And I said, sure. Yeah, I'll meet you for coffee. So I met him for coffee and we were talking. And he, again, was talking about, being a non-monogamous person, just in reference to someone else. And I said something. So what is it? Most people want someone in their life. What's different for you? And he said, well, he goes, I get to watch you light up. And I said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And he goes, you lit up. You just lit up when I, came around you and when we did things. And it's really weird. Like,
You fed off of that he had that power over you, and it made
I
him.
think it's a dopamine hit for him. I think it's as much of an addiction, like, grooming the sexting, right? Like I really hadn't sexted till Todd, right? And I remember him saying something about, I pushed your boundaries. I just kept pushing your boundaries. And it was like he took some pride in that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's interesting when you can look back. Oh, I learned a ton from him. And what I learned the most is I learned about boundaries.
Good.
He used to always talk about boundaries, 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 but I didn't learn them because he spoke about them. I learned them because of who he is.
Yeah. The things he did to you that you actually had to physically create the boundaries. Oh,
Yeah.
He is so warped, preaching to people about mental health and learning your boundaries and this and that when he is the one that needs to take his own advice. He's just
Oh yeah.
so messed up.
Yeah, and you talk about like mind fucks is he came to the last time he came to my house before I kind of like quit hanging out with him. He walked in and I'd lost a ton. I'd been working out a ton and just, I was looking good. And he walked in and he was like, and he's like, wow, you look amazing,
Yeah.
And he was supposed to stay with me for 3 days. And we got back to my house from dinner and he goes, I think I'm going to go to a hotel. And I said, why? And he said, I just think it's a good idea. And I said, I thought you were going to stay here. And he's like, no. I think I'm going to go to a hotel.
Weird.
And so I think I drove him to the hotel. I'm like, that's fine. And I drove him to the hotel. And then I got home and then he texted me and invited me to come to the hotel. And I said, no, I'm not coming to the hotel. And I said, you didn't want to stay. You were going to stay here. Then you didn't want to stay here. Then you wanted the hotel. Now you're inviting me over. I'm like, what the hell is going on in your head?
I have an idea. What do you think?
He said, I don't think anything good could come out of me staying with you tonight. I'm still very attracted to you. And I don't think that that's good for either one of us. So what do I feel, right? Confused, but yet respected.
What?
Right?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I mean, I am thinking that while he was down there, he was multitasking, trying to hit up somebody else.
Yeah.
Then it didn't come through. So then he wanted his hottie patati bestie to come hang out now. That's where my mind goes.
Well, I know that he would be communicating with other women when he was around me. At that point, I had decided to just be his friend because I'm like, he's a better friend than he would ever be a partner.
Oh, totally. My ex.
So I already decided that, but yeah, it's funny now looking back on it.
Yeah. Yes. Some things that you probably were thinking in your head could be so off now, knowing everything you know now.
Well, then I would see who he would
sense.
sleep with. Then I would see who he would have sex with. And I was like, are you kidding me?
I know. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? It's like, do you want them to be attractive? I don't know which one's worse. It's like, oh.
I think the woman's psyche it's always going to be like, well, what's wrong with this? Like, what I mean? I think we always go there, unfortunately.
Seriously. I know. You're right. Yeah. I do. I know it. It's just a natural instinct, I suppose.
So how did Donna find out about the other women? I know that there were a few in Seattle, Washington. There was also a handful in Sun Valley, Idaho. But how did she actually get into contact with them?
For the first 7 months of us talking, we hadn't met in person. He was acting like we were moving towards that.
Right.
Via FaceTime and calls and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, there were points where I was so confused. And so I reached out to A, B, C, D, the people I knew. I'm a good detective. So
I love it.
I figured out early on and I called them out on it.
Did somebody from Sun Valley reach out to you previously? Was it Jill or Roxy? How did you find out about the masses?
I found out about the masses through a gal in Sun Valley, and she had contacted me after Todd and I went camping because she was being pursued by him.
Is that Karen?
It is Missy.
Okay.
Missy and I, we became friendly after that because she was like, "Are you just friends with him?" Very sweet woman, and he was pursuing her. Yeah, she's a nice house in Sun Valley. At this point, he's my friend. I have no romantic interest. I'm like, but let me just tell you, don't go there. He will move himself into your house. He will take over your life. I didn't know. I think my intuition said he was playing women for money.
Okay.
But I never understand the enormity of it.
Okay.
I think Missy let me know about Roxy, and then I believe Roxy reached out, or I reached out to Roxy and said, "Hey, if you want to talk, I have some information."
The following are a few of the video messages that Todd sent Donna. And at the very end of the third and final clip, Todd actually says something that is true.
Well, I sure wish I could do more for you. I would. I can understand that's a lot of years. Heck, if I died, you've only known me for 3, 4, 5 years now? I can't imagine 17. Just saying. Well, maybe you could help me with my issues then if you know what my issues are. Just saying. I would cheer you up. I would. Anyways, anything I can do, I'm here for you. I have issues, but I don't think I'm bipolar or borderline or anything like that yet. Maybe I am.
And there it is, folks, straight from his own mouth. Just saying.
Called me maybe 6 months ago when he knew about Dave and I splitting up, and just said, "I'm so sorry for what you're going through," and because he had a breakdown. So, and then I didn't hear from him until about a month ago, and that was, I'm trying to find out what you're doing, whose side you're on, why you blocked me and took me off Facebook, and
my goodness. Really? Yeah. So at this point, when he contacts you a month ago, is he completely aware of the podcast and everything?
I have no idea because I didn't answer, and he left a voicemail. And it just was, "Hey, just calling, just wanted to touch bases, see how you're doing, see if you've heard anything from Dave. Anyways, I have time, give me a call." And at this point, I have now figured out all these women that he's taken for a ride, or, doing worse things to.
As things became clearer and clearer and Donna could really see the person Todd Dean really was, she decided that her so-called friendship with this man wasn't worth the effort. So Donna conspired a plan to make sure that she got the money back from Todd that she had lent him. And after that, Donna put an end to the relationship 100%.
Really mad because I had texted him before I went to Hawaii and said, "Hey, remember the money I let you borrow? I could really use it back. I need to get my daughter tires. I'll have it to you by Thursday." And he sent me, it was a few $100s. And he sent it to me by Thursday. And then I was in Hawaii 4 days later.
Okay.
And he was mad. Oh, he was so mad.
Why? Because you were in Hawaii and he wasn't? Why?
He was mad because I asked him for money and then I'm taking a trip.
Oh.
Right? Well, I didn't really need the money for her tires. I just had figured him out and I want my fucking money back.
Yeah, you could say whatever you want. It's your money. He owes it to you.
So I basically conned the con.
Yeah, I did that.
Offered $25,000, but I'm like, $300 is a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
But he was really angry, and I talked to him on the phone, and 45 minutes, he was going on and on about, but you're my friend, you don't understand how important you are to me. I said, "Todd, I'm as important as the next girl or the next 20. I said, I'm not saying I'll never speak to you again, but quit texting me every day." I go, "In fact, I have a really nice man waiting down the hall for me. So I'm going to go on that note.
Yeah.
And I just want nothing but the best for you." And I hung up.
Good.
And I didn't talk to him for a few years.
When did you walk away and say, "Enough's enough, I don't want to be your friend anymore"?
So about, about 3 years ago,
okay,
I said to him, "Quit texting me, quit calling me." And I was getting in a relationship with my now ex-fiance.
Okay.
And We were friends, but I could feel something was changing. And then I kind of just said to Todd, you need to leave me alone. Like, and I had just got on the dating websites. I just had decided to start dating again. And he was livid. And
they don't like that when they can't have you but to themselves. Even if they don't want you to be with anybody else.
Well, right. And so, and I had said to him, I'm like, you don't get to be mad.
Mm-mm.
And he was texting me. He was really angry. And so I went outside at the hotel room where I was in Sedona, Arizona. And I was like, what is going on with you? What are you so angry about? You're in Todd land. You live in Todd world. I go, what do you have, like 300 flying monkeys? What's one less?
Mm-hmm.
And, because at this point I figured out I had said to him before, you're a narcissist. He goes, yeah, but about 7 out of 10 on the scale. I'm like, okay, it's still not good, I think for me, one of the things that I realized is I'm wanting him to be something I thought he was.
Yes.
He's not it.
No.
And, the unfortunate part I thought was I'm like, you have so much potential to do so much good in the world.
I know.
But he's not well.
I know. And I think you probably wanted him to be the person he pitched you he was originally.
Oh, totally. And Christy thinks that about the time she cut him off, because they were like that where he shared a lot with her.
Okay.
Because I think he replaced me.
Oh, yeah.
And
BPD always have people lined up. The fear of abandonment. They can't be alone. Even when things are going well, even if they haven't got to the sabotage point, there's always a backup because they're so repetitive. They know what's going to happen and they cannot be alone. So they have a backup and a backup to the backup.
Yeah.
Being a survivor of Todd Dean, I asked Donna if she had a warning for any others out there who might be faced with a person like this predator.
I think that the warning for the Todd Deans of the world, the Tinder swindlers, the whatever they call them, I think that as women, like we so want that romantic story, right? We want to be able to depend on this man, and we look to men to behave that way. And I think the one question we need to ask is, do I like him, and find out what he's about instead of being so worried about if they like us. Because I think that's almost ingrained in us from every fairy tale, every story of the handsome prince at the end. You get a toad, you get a toad. I learned to respect myself first, and boundaries, and making someone earn my respect and my trust rather than just giving it. So I think that's one thing I'd say to any woman out there. And I think a lot of us that have been through this situation with Todd, no matter what avenue it was, I think that we've learned that lesson.
Absolutely.
It's a hard lesson. But I think for our daughters, I think it's important that we all stick together and we all speak up, because
absolutely,
God knows I don't want my daughter to experience anything like, this huge, tribe of women.
Yeah.
I'm so far removed from Todd Dean. It's like he's like this little dot way over like where Waldo is.
I love it. He's nothingness and nothing land.
Yeah. And I feel bad for the people that he's hurt.
Yeah.
There was a time that I hurt from Todd, but like everything else, it's a growing experience. But for women to lose their life savings, and I think when he goes after women who don't have the fortitude or the resilience, like it hurts them at a deeper level. I can look at him and go, oh, fuck you, you're lost. I mean, I think I've even said that to him when he, threatened one time, like, I can't hang out with you. I'm like, hey, you don't want my friendship? I got plenty of friends, dude.
Yeah. Exactly. You're like, bummer. Moving on.
Yeah. So, do I have a soft heart, and am I empathetic? Yes. Will I light your ass on fire? Yes.
Yeah, you can hold your own just fine. I got that vibe right away. I love it.
And I think, that's the things that he was like, whoa, and I think with Karen too, I've never met her, but my thoughts are she's a badass, and I don't think he likes that in women.
I agree. Yeah. He can't get over on them.
There were things about him who lit me up, and he lit me up like no other man had.
Yeah.
But apparently that's what narcissists do. Yeah. I didn't know that. Now I do. I have to run from being lit up.
Yeah.
I'm going to light my own fire.
Good. I love that. That is a good place to end this. Yeah, you're not going to light me up. I'm going to light my own fire. I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. That's going to be a quote on a t-shirt. We're going to have to figure that one out.
It's right under, you mess with Southern girls and we don't play.
That's right. I mean, I'm not from the South, but I'll own it because,
You'd have to have bigger hair.
I know. I'm like, I'm part of the Southern tribe now. They're going to have to indoctrinate us or something. They're so tight and feisty down there, too. I think that was a big mistake going to Nashville and messing with them.
I think it's like Julia Roberts said, huge.
I know. Big, huge
mistake.
I love it. Thank you. I appreciate your vulnerability because that is what's going to touch people and not the pretty picture that we paint because our pride's in the way. So I appreciate that.
Got none left.
Next time on Ex-Wives Undercover, in the final episode of Jill's story, Kissing a Toad, there will be updates on each and every one of the women that you were introduced to along the way. And if you have been following us on social media, you too have seen multiple new victims come forward. And what about the total dollar amount that Todd has conned from all of these individuals? We will bring you those numbers as well. And once again, if you like what you're hearing, please leave us a 5-star review and make sure to join our private Facebook group for even more juicy info. You can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And of course, you can always visit our site at www.exwivesundercover.com.